Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday evening. I am Molly Moran. I am the owner of Table Wine, and I'm teaching a class tonight, unlike any class I've ever taught before. So thanks for being here. Tonight, we are going to focus on the winemakers behind the wine. And when I was thinking about this, I kind of immediately was drawn to one of them. And then I thought, oh, it'd be really fun to pair him with this other winemaker. So I'll kind of like walk you through that story in a moment. But this is just not my normal style, right? I often do classes about grapes and we taste them from around the world, or we do a place and we taste all the wines from that particular region, or we kind of dig into like a specific concept, right? And this is a bit more like storytelling, or a bit more like focused on the people behind the wine, which is great. It's kind of how I often like to talk about wine with folks. I just don't normally focus on it in class. So here we go. I guess we're going to experiment and see how this all goes. This was somewhat inspired. My husband really gave me the idea for this class, but it was somewhat inspired by the current season of the podcast that I host. I don't know if you guys all know this, but I co-host a podcast with Andy Stoiber, who used to work for me. And this season we're doing the supply chain. So we're doing these interviews with people kind of along the whole way of making the wine, importing it, distributing it, selling it, and drinking it, and kind of all of those different people. And in interviewing the kind of the people that are like the closest to the grape, the winemaker and the importers, I have felt particularly inspired. I felt very like, re-energized about what I do. So I'm excited to then like get to share about these winemakers because I feel equally excited about them. So there you go. If you are joining us live, please take a second to fill out the poll. I'm just curious if the names Telmo Rodriguez and Marc Isart mean anything to any of you, or if you're like, no, I just take classes with you. I'm just kind of curious, like what's bringing people here specifically for this class. I'm always curious why you're here, but I think it's a little more obvious when it's like Pinot Noir. And then there is a question on the table that most of you have not answered yet. So I'm curious and I'd love some inspiration because we were talking about two lovely gentlemen, but they are gentlemen. We are talking about men this evening, but it is Women's History Month. The icebreaking question on the table is, what accomplished woman do you think should be more famous than she is or was? And maybe who that person is. So we've got some good answers. Constance Baker Motley was the first Black woman to be a federal judge. That got a lot of like woo woo. Rachel Vindman is Alexander Vindman's wife, and she's equally as inspired as Alexander. I had to look up who that was because I didn't know that. But he is a Ukrainian-born member. I believe he was. Douglas can correct me, but he worked at the UN, I believe, and he was for the US. Maybe I'm showing my ignorance about this. And then Rosalind Franklin, her research was crucial to understanding how DNA was structured. Super cool. So who else should we know about? Drop it in the chat. I want to know more. I have a young daughter, and so her bookshelf is full of, Brazen and Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls and all sorts of like really great anthologies of unsung women. And I would say that mine is, Douglas is telling me that Rachel Vindman and her husband both have very distinguished public service careers. That is lovely. So I read these books with my daughter. I find new people that I've never heard of before. And one such person is Mae Jemison. I feel terrible that I didn't know who Mae Jemison was. She is the first Black woman to go into space. She is alive now. She writes books. She always knew she wanted to go into space. She was a little kid who was obsessed with Star Trek. And then she got to be an astronaut. So there you go. You too can follow your dreams. So let's get started. So this is going to be a little bit different than normal because there's like not that much fundamental information. I guess what you need to know, if you don't already know this much based on the wines, they're Spanish men. They are Spanish winemakers. And so our evening will be all Spanish reds, which I know a lot of you drive on anyway. So works out well in your favor, right? So this is a little map of kind of where we're going to be, like where are we located in Spain. So Remy is up north. which is where we're going to start. And then we're going to head south. And actually, it doesn't, the way that the zooming worked, you don't even see the name Madrid, but Madrid is kind of that cluster of all of where all of those yellow roads come together. That is actually Madrid. And so the other two wineries are just outside of Madrid. So we will get there, but we are definitely kind of on the eastern side of Spain. Based on the poll, it looks like most of you don't know either of these people, and that is totally cool. Like, I didn't really necessarily expect you to. I do geek out a bit about Telmo, so I think that maybe some of you, I've passed that geeking on to you. So I think, a couple of you know that, but no one's like, yeah, I'm a Marc Isart expert. So that's fair. I'm not going to say you're going to be an expert by the next 50 minutes, but you'll know something. And if nothing else, you're going to just drink some delicious wine. So I want to tell you a little bit about Telmo. If you want to have Remieri Rioja in your glass, you're welcome to. We'll get to the wine in just a minute. So feel free to start drinking if you'd like, but we're going to pause on commenting about the wine until we get there, until I start drinking. So Telmo is the owner and winemaker at Remieri, which is located in Rioja. It is his family's estate. And so Telmo now oversees all wine production there. He studied winemaking in France. He studied at a few different wineries in the Rhone Valley. I think the most well-known, they're all actually pretty well-known, but Chateau de Beaucastel is the kind of the biggest name, I think, of the ones that he studied with. And then he also studied in Provence. And his love of French oak really comes through. I think I've shared some of his wines in previous classes because of his love of French oak. So I had to go back to Remieri because it's just so beautiful. So there is, if you are familiar with French wine at all, I think that you will see some similarities in Telmo's style when you taste this wine. Fun fact about Telmo is that, like a lot of European winemakers whose families own estates, they're never allowed to experiment, get their chops, learn winemaking, any of that stuff. They're not allowed to do that with whatever the wine is that the family needs to make money, right? So his father was never going to let him just go play around with this wine that we all have, the Remieri Reserva. That's not where you experiment. So his father said, you can go play around with the white grapes because we don't really do anything with those. Go ahead and, go see what you can do. And Telmo is truly, truly a master winemaker. I'm sure there are people, I'm sure there's someone in the world who could rival him, but I don't honestly know who that is. His winemaking style is just so beautiful. And so what he did with those white grapes has now become this very cult wine that is hard to come by, and it deserves every ounce of cult status that it has. So if that's of interest to you guys, it is definitely well outside of the table wine price range. But I know for a fact, I checked this morning, there are a few bottles of that available at the supplier. It would be about $100. So if that's of interest to you and you feel like splurging, Remieri Rioja Blanco is one of the world's best wines. So hey, there you go. But that's how Telmo really kind of got his made a name for himself and kind of created his own identity at the family's estate. The other thing to know about him is that he's horribly prolific. He has so many different wine projects. So he when I say that he has projects, it means that he has a number of different wine labels and wineries that he in some way or another has his finger in the pot. So I just listed a few of them. Pegaso is the one that we're going to taste later. Elzy and Lozanga are two that you might see around. We had them for a while. I don't think they're in the Madison market anymore. And then the Laderas d'Ochil is from Western Spain. If any of you've gotten the Branco de Santa Cruz from me before, that's part of that. Every now and then I'm able to offer kind of different Telmo wines, and that's one of those wineries. So he is I'm trying to think of like an author or a musician who's like this. I can't really think of anybody off the top of my head, but like he's just the, like on the Telmo Rodriguez website, I think it listed that he's currently working with 45 different native varietals. He has about 80 hectares of land all sprinkled throughout Spain, not counting the Remieri estate. So he's doing it all. So you can find a lot of his wines. More so, I would say, not here in Madison, sadly. So Remieri, let's talk about it. So wine has been made here at the estate since the late 1500s, just right before it became the 1600s. Telmo's father, the estate itself got kind of broken up into parcels over the centuries, and Telmo's father created the modern winery in 1967. So that's when Telmo's dad took over. It is, and they're very proud to tell you this, that they are on the Basque side of the Rioja region. So they are in Rioja Alavesa. So they're like kind of going up into the Sierra Mountains. But if you call him Spanish, he will correct you and tell you that he is Basque. Because his family is from the Basque area and that's very important to them. So that's where their land is, and they're very, very tied to it. So Telmo, at Remieri, Telmo is the winemaker, and his sister Amaya is the viticulturalist. So she's the person who oversees all the grape growing, which I think is really lovely that they passed it down to both kids and that they are, side by side kind of working on the family's project. Things to know about Remieri: they're certified organic, which is uncommon. Particularly, I think we've talked about this before in other classes. It's not super common that someone's going to pay for the organic certification and maintain it, but it is incredibly important to the family. And I have a picture on the next slide. I'll show you in just a second of the land, and it's really, Telmo is very into making sure that the whole biosphere of the vineyards is complete and harmonious. So it's the organic part of that is very important to him. And then from a winemaking standpoint, it is natural winemaking. So it's indigenous yeasts. It's minimal sulfites. It's very hands off, letting the beauty of the region kind of do its work. I do have some food pairings here, which I think some of them might seem obvious if you've ever had Rioja before. The roasted lamb is a really classic pairing. Salty cheeses is a really classic pairing. But I can speak from experience and say that this wine is amazing with grilled fish. It doesn't seem like that's necessarily, like, oh yeah, sure, drink red Rioja with grilled fish, but it is really phenomenal. So please do, if you're drinking along tonight, swirl, taste, tell me what you think. I'm going to keep regaling you with tales of Telmo because this is my ode to Telmo. That's all that's happening tonight, is it's an ode to Telmo. So this is a picture of Remieri. All but the last picture that I'm sharing with you tonight are ones that I personally took. So this is, if you have the bottle, and actually I guess I'll hold it up in case you don't have the bottle. Let me make myself larger for a second here. So, I'm going to be really straight up. I don't think that this is the most exciting wine label ever, right? Like it's a picture of an estate. There are some vineyards, and okay, you're right. Like it's nice, but that's it. I think what happened to me was that that was my approach when I was, I will fess up and I will say a slightly ignorant American. And then I, drove up this road over here. And then I was standing where I took this picture, and I'm looking at this building with these vineyards in front of it. And I was like, but I'm here now. Like, here I am. This is like real, right? And those mountains in the back are the Sierra Cantabrias. And I'm just kind of like, what? Oh, right. This is like a real place. So it's not all just theoretical, right? Or it's not just like some BS picture of a random estate. It's someone's home, right? It's someone's family home. So, okay, tell me what you're thinking of the wine. I can't believe you're all being so quiet about this wine. Okay, so the first comment is the nose is so complex. I'm just trying to figure it all out. Beautiful. Great. I will let you keep figuring that all out. I feel you, and I'm glad to know that that's what that's why there's the quiet. So while you guys think, and please do, like really do, please take your time. My funny Telmo story is that the first time I met him, I really did not like him. I met him at a trade show, like a tasting that the Importer de Maison had in Chicago a number of years ago. And I don't know, we just got off on the wrong foot. It was really funny. He said to me, like, so he asked me basically, like, do you know what Rioja is? And I was like, excuse me? Like, I was kind of like, who the hell is this guy? Yeah, I know what Rioja is. And I was kind of like, I'm not so sure. And so I just kind of like passed. Like, I was like, okay, thanks, never mind. I'm just gonna move on. And I tasted some other wines. And then the guy who sells this wine to me, Tom Loop, was like, did you have a chance to chat with Telmo? And I was like, oh yeah, but Tom then like introduced me, and Telmo poured me a glass of his white that, I mean, honestly is hands down one of the best wines I have ever tasted. And he then, like, you know, started talking to me, and I was like, okay, he's a little bit nicer. I like this guy. His wine is nice. So then when we got to Rioja, Tom took me to Rioja. We get to Telmo's house, right? Like, he lives there, at least part of the year he lives there with his family. And we're standing literally in those vineyards looking out over the Rioja region. And Telmo says the exact same thing to me. He says to me, do you know Rioja? And he like says it. And I was like, oh my God, that's what you meant all those years ago. But in a restaurant in Chicago, it sounded like you thought I didn't know what I was talking about. What he was trying to express was like, look at this. Like, this is my family's land, and like, this is everything. And it was so interesting how different it resonated the second time. It helped that I was at this beautiful house, and that I then proceeded to have lunch with his family and sit in the kitchen and drink all of his beautiful wine, and, you know, hang out with his wife, and, just like have an amazing afternoon with him. So it did change my mind. So now I love him very much. Katya and Drew said, classic, lovely Rioja, loving the oak present, very dusty and like a rosemary note. I love it. I love the dusty note. I do think you can smell the oak, right? I do think that there's like, and if you didn't do the oak class with me, you could definitely go back to that at some point, because I know that, you know, we talk about the difference with French oak, and I feel like you can really kind of pinpoint like, oh, this is French oak here. It's a bit more elegant, not super charred like American oak, but noticeable, right? And it gives the wine a very, the term is fine-grained tannins. They are there, they are structuring the wine, but they are not very like aggressive. It is classic Tempranillo in the like the dark, juicy black fruit, right? I think that it's kind of all of those things. One other wonderful thing about this particular wine, this is their Reserva, so it already, you know, has a nice amount of age on it when it hits the market. So this is 2014, so it already has 8 years of age on it. I can say that you can age these wines for as long as you like. 5 years, 25 years. It's going to be great whenever you decide to drink it. Patty finally came over from the kitchen to smell and just said, ooh. I know that's not how he said it. I'm sure it sounded way cooler than that. Everything sounds better with Patty's Irish accent, but that's the best that I can do. So I'm glad that Patty's enjoying the smell. Tegan and I are both really enjoying it. Tegan finds it very comforting. Oh, I like that. I like that word for this wine a lot. There is something very homey about this wine, I think. If I was really wealthy, I think that this would be a wine that I would drink very frequently. I really do. Like, it's a wine that I'm drawn to a lot, but it's just not, at least in my regular everyday drinking price point, but it is so lovely when I do. The question on the table is it wild to say there's a candied orange peel flavor? Not if you're smelling that or tasting that, because of course not. It's what you're telling. It's what you're smelling or tasting. But to validate you more, Tempranillo does sometimes have that kind of like bitter orange. So I think that is totally fair game, and you are welcome to have that opinion. Maybe someone else feels it. I mean, there's definitely the acidity that I think is just wonderful, right? And compared to a lot of Riojas that are pretty heavy-handed with the oak, and not necessarily like known for balance, I think that that's one of the things that's so nice about this particular wine. One of the other things I wanted to mention about my personal experience at Remy is that with the second winery, Bernabaleva, I have more pictures to share, and I actually like only shared a few. I didn't share everything that I had from the winery. This is one of two pictures that I have from the visit. Andrea Hilsey, who owns Square Wine Company, was on the trip with me. She took a really awesome video in the backseat of Telmo's car as he took us on what we called the wine safari. It was just totally bananas. But I don't have more pictures, and I don't have more pictures of Telmo or his family. And I was commenting to my husband about that earlier, because I was like, well, I feel like it's a shame. Like, I want to share more of my experience there. And I realized that the reason that I don't have more pictures is because we were having such a wonderful visit, and it was very real, and it was not, and most of the wineries I've ever visited, regardless of where they are in the world, when I visit, I don't feel like I'm getting something fake. I don't mean it to sound like that, but with this particular visit, it was kind of like, we walked through the cellar so that we could see it. And then it was like, please come into my home. And we sat and we had lunch where the only thing that wasn't from their property was the fish. And everything else, the honey, the olive oil, all of the vegetables, literally everything else was grown on the property. His children are trilingual. They were all, at the time, I think like the eldest was maybe 18 or 19. These like very cool teenage, very European kids talking about soccer and whatever. And like, it was just, the wine was the focus and not the focus at the same time. So when Tegan used the word comforting, like for me, I have this like very visceral memory of like a fireplace and tile floor. And, it kind of, I don't know, it feels like, pick your favorite European movie set in Europe, like in some beautiful setting, right? Like it felt very Call Me by Your Name. Like I just was like, yes, I could just hang out here and live here all the time. So I don't have more pictures to show you because they're such good people. So take that for what that's worth. The question or the comment, I don't know how, but it's both light on the palate, not light bodied, but a full mouthfeel and full of flavors. Black fruit, some herbs, smooth but present tannins. Knocked that out of the park. Right? I think that's exactly what it is. Like it's not light, like it's not light bodied, but there's a vibrancy to it, right? From the acidity that keeps it from feeling really heavy on the palate in the way that so many Riojas do. It's 14.5%. So it's not, it's not boozy, right? It's not that, but it's just masterful winemaking. It's just picking the grapes at the right time and having that nice bit of acidity and earth and herbs and all that stuff. I'm really like, we could stay here all night with just this one specific wine, but I think we should probably move on. Does anybody have any questions? Anything you want to know about Telmo? So if you ever have a chance to meet him, I don't know where you would do that, but if you did, for some reason, ever meet Telmo and he asked you, like, do you know Rioja? Just say, like, tell me about it. Like, just like let him be his philosopher. Just going to say, when can we go to his house? So when we were there, so they're not open to the public. They don't do public tours. So, but we pulled up the gate, and Tom, the guy who took me, Tom Loop, is like has known Telmo for a long time. They are friends. And so Telmo comes and like opens the gate for us, right? And we come through, and I don't know, I don't remember exactly if we like left the gate open or what happened, but a young couple came kind of following us up the hill, and they were like, okay, we're here to tour Remy. And Telmo was like, oh no, we're appointment only, we don't, and they were like, but they're here. And he was like, yeah, no, like, nope, that's not how it works. So I don't know if at some of his other projects you could tour those wineries, but I don't know that you would ever, if he would be there. So sorry to dangle that carrot in front of you, but if he ever comes to Madison, I don't know why he would do that, but if he ever comes to Madison, I'll let y'all know. So there we go. Okay, we're going to go to Madrid, where we're going to stay. So come with me to Madrid. So Marc Isart is the other person that we need to talk about tonight. Marc is now the owner and winemaker of the Marc Isart winery in Vinos de Madrid. So that's the wine region just outside of Madrid. It's about 45 minutes outside of Madrid. So Vinos de Madrid, the whole name is the DO, is the region. Marc is from Catalonia. So similarly, and this is really interesting, I couldn't find any info about like this being something that attracts Telmo and Marc together, but Telmo is proud of his Basque heritage, and Marc is very proud of his Catalan heritage, and thinks of himself as Catalan, not as Spanish. So again, kind of an interesting like political bent there with these two guys. I did not know that when I paired them up. I paired them up for other reasons, but so neither here nor there. Marc is from Catalan, but he really learned all of his winemaking skills in Galicia. So in northwestern Spain, where it is definitely white wine land. There is some red wine in Galicia, and Marc learned both white and red there. But that area, if you know Albarino from Ria Spices, is known for acidity. It's known for brightness. And so that's really what attracted Marc to that area. It's also known for its particular soils, and we'll get to that. Well, I guess we'll actually kind of talk about it with both of them. So soil is something that like is really important to Marc, and you can kind of see that in both of the wines we're going to taste. So Marc gained renown as the winemaker at Bernabeleva, which is the second wine we're going to try. So if you want to move on to the next wine, it is the wine that is Navajareros. So that is really where Marc kind of gained the recognition that he deserves. He was quite young when he took over winemaking at Bernabeleva, and he became a freaking rock star. He co-created a wine label called Commando Garnacha, the G standing for Garnacha. And he was one of the original winemakers. He has since left that project, and I haven't seen those wines in the market in a few years. I was always completely just blown away by Commando G wines. So if you do come across them, just still check them out, because the people who are making those wines are very much in the Marc Isart kind of like school of thought. Marc is also the winemaker for Picasso. So Telmo is the owner, and he kind of oversees the winemaking. Like, he's going to come and taste and make sure that the wine is the way that he wants it, because it's his name associated with it. But Marc is the actual like winemaker at Picasso. So that's where we will end. And that is kind of where these two masterminds dovetail. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But for now, let's talk about Bernabeleva. So I know some of you in the poll, right? Nobody said that they know Marc really well, but you know him a little bit. You haven't heard of him. totally fine. I think if you shop at Table Wine, you probably have seen some wine from Bernabeleva. Bernabeleva is in Vinos de Madrid. It was founded in 1926. The current owner is a lovely gentleman named Juan Bulnes, who took us on a tour of all of his family's vineyards and the winery. And the winery was started in the 1920s by his great-grandfather. Juan took over in the late 90s, early 2000s, but he is not a winemaker. Or he wasn't a winemaker, I should say. And he brought on a decently famous winemaker whose name didn't mean anything to me. That doesn't mean he's not famous, but his name didn't mean anything to me. But he brought him on, and this guy was like, his name is Rafael Perez. He said, we really need Marc Isart. And Juan was like, Marc Isart makes wine in Galicia. And he was like, yeah, we need him. We need him here. He needs to come be our winemaker. So they lured Marc there. And Marc really transformed the winery and transformed their vineyards. It was very essential to him that they switched to biodynamic farming. So they were always kind of organic, practicing, like good green practices. And biodynamics is very important to Marc. So he slowly transformed that. By doing that, he really put Vinos de Madrid on the map. This area of Spain is pretty warm unless you have the right terrain. It's super, super sandy soils. And there was just a lot of like not good wine. I shouldn't say a lot. There was a little bit of not good wine. Yeah, it was not like a particularly prolific area for wine. And Marc is the reason that kind of the spotlight is on them more. So please do taste this wine and tell me what you think and smell. I love this wine with all things grilled. So whether it's grilled sausages or grilled salmon, it's really just delightful with all of those things. Not that I didn't have a lovely time at Bernabeleva, but I did actually take some more pictures because it was the last stop on my Spanish trip. And so I had learned by then that I was going to want pictures of the things I was doing. So I was talking about the sandy soils. This is the sandy soils. Here they are, the Grenache vines. So this wine is 100% Grenache. They are these little bush vines, right? And they're like 100-year-old vines growing very close to the sandy soil. All biodynamic. You can kind of see, the other random little plants growing, which I always think is a great sign that, the earth is being well tended. In contrast, I'm just going to go back to that. So like very kind of like rugged, right? Like it feels very, it felt very Southern California to me, not the built up parts of Southern California, but it had this like California vibe to me, kind of rugged terrain and stuff. And then here is their winery. It is freaking pristine. Like, look at that place. It is just like, it is so clean and pretty and simple. And it just felt like, there are places, and not that they're not kind of like romantic, but sometimes you'll go to like a natural winemaker. And I'm sorry to back up. Bernabeleva also is a natural wine making. They also use natural winemaking processes. You'll go to a natural wine place and they're like, it's a little dirty. Like you're kind of like, are you clean? Like you're kind of like, oh, what kind of weird stuff is gonna grow? And then I walked into Bernabeleva and it was just like, so sterile, and like there isn't a lot of romanticism there because it kind of looks like Scandinavian, like it's like very like, here we are with our clean blonde wood, but it did make me feel very safe that everything was going to be very clean and well made. So this is the final picture because none of you are talking about the wine yet. So as you're thinking about the wine, I'll just keep chatting and eventually you'll have to say something. Bernabeleva translates to bear's forest. You can see on the label, if you have the wine in front of you, that there is a bear on the label with seemingly a woman, but we'll just say a person on top. Well, those bear statues really do exist, and I had to go there. Thank you, Kristen and Patty, for loving that photo. I was like, I'm going to share it one more time because, It's just freaking glorious. It was that was it. That was the last thing. Got in the car, drove back to Madrid, and the next day I was on my way back home. So the Bears, and please come on, taste this wine. Tell me what you're thinking. I'm gonna have to stop talking at some point. That area of Madrid is super Celtic. That's where the Celts settled. One of the places that they settled. I mean, they settled throughout Spain, but that was like kind of like one of their strongholds. And there are these bear statues there. And very nearby, there was like this copse of trees that the Celts believed was a portal to a spiritual realm, a positive spiritual realm, not like the gates to hell or anything like that. So out in the forest, they had kind of this area with these bears, and they would have all of these like festivities kind of there out in the woods and stuff. So I just kind of like picture my Celtic ancestors out there on the bears. And that is kind of what I I don't know, embodied when I got up on that bear. I was just like, I'm just going to take up all the space and be the Celtic warrior. Okay, so I'm hearing that the wine is great. Yay. Lighter than the Remy and more red fruits for me, but you get the natural wine smell. Cinnamon on the nose. Yeah, I taste red fruit and cherry. Mm-hmm. Love the classic Spanish geography in these pictures. Yeah, thanks. I'm glad. It feels like, super Madrid. More acid than we'd expect from a Grenache wine, almost pomegranate. Yeah, for sure, right? I think all of the red fruit is really interesting. Tegan and I are having a major disagreement. I'm getting sour candied vines, and she thinks I've completely lost it. Well, based on the pomegranate, sour candy vibes. Oh, that makes more sense. I was thinking of like red vines, like licorice, and I was kind of like, okay. I don't think you've lost it. I think you're just fine. You're good, Heather. Everybody else is saying tart red fruit. Why can't you say sour red fruit? It's all good. I'm with you. You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm here for you. Tegan, I'm also here for you. It's not like a either or. I'm here for both of you. So the thing, if you haven't had Bernabelleva wines before, at least they're reds. I think the one thing that is really noticeable is the tannins. Am I right? Anybody did they surprise anybody? Nobody commented on it, but I was like, oh, that's funny. They just start like right away, the acidity is just outstanding as well, right? I feel like it's almost Nebbiolo-like in how the upfront tannin, but then also the kick of the acidity is kind of just wild, right? I think that it's, damn, that wine just is so delicious. Sorry, I'm just like, you guys are saying the lack of tannins. You're not really getting them either. Huh. Okay. Fascinating. Are others also not getting tannin? Like right up front, not necessarily on the finish, but like for me, it's like even before I've swallowed, like it's like as I'm drinking, they're happening. I told Patty I was getting a weird feeling on my teeth from them when I sipped. That's them. Yeah. Yes. Just saying that the tannins are upfront, very different from the Rioja. Super, super different, right? The construction of the lineup was definitely storytelling, right? Like, let's meet Telmo first, and then we'll meet Marc, and then we'll meet them together. And so that's kind of the lineup. But there was also this like, yes, it's Rioja, But Bernabeleva's tannins, to me, I'm like, oh, I don't want to wreck your palates right up front. So that's why Marc came second. That's a completely different feeling of tannins for me. I agree. Like, I think that their wines, their reds, all have that marked up front. I would say more on the Camino de Navajerros, which is the wine that we always have on the shelf as long as it's available. Is almost a chalkiness. I don't think that this gets to chalky territory. But there is definitely that like very like noticeable upfront. And thank you, Katja and Drew, for backing me up on my Nebbiolo vibes. See, I back you guys up. You back me up. We all feel good about ourselves. So the tannins here, along with the acidity, I would say are the calling card of Marc's wines. Telmo is the elegance. Marc is the... I don't want to say that it's rugged because the wine is not rugged. It's really beautiful, right? It's just, it's more powerful than I think you expect. Particularly if what you know is it's Spanish, it's Garnacha. I think that most people expect it's going to be big and fruity and boozy, and that's kind of yummy in its own way, but it's not particularly complex. And Marc just turns that all on its freaking head. You know, he just is like, not at all that kind of winemaker. So when I visited them, like I said, it was the last place that we visited. I don't remember. We visited like a dozen wineries over the course of 10 days, maybe more than that. So they were the last stop, and they were so generous and so lovely. And Juan Bulnes, the owner, drove us around all of the vineyards, and then we got to taste through all of the wines with Marc and Juan, standing in that lovely, I'm going to say Scandinavian now, like this like lovely, clean, crisp, winery, and just hearing the way that Marc was talking about the land. He, the soil, the sandy soil, was like, he just like couldn't stop effusing about it. And it's one thing that for me as a wine drinker, just like as a normal person, soil was not what got me into wine. It's not what kind of like excited me about it. And it was actually talking with him. And there are a couple other winemakers over my career who've done it as well, but Marc is one of them for sure. We're talking with him about why he loves what he does and why he feels like he could just make Grenache throughout Spain and have them all be so different just because of soil. That's pretty cool. That was definitely a moment for me where I was like, oh yeah, I get now why people talk about soil in a way that I hadn't gotten it before. So, Katja and Drew are pointing out that they're kind of shocked that this wine is 14.5%. For real, it feels lighter. I mean, I think quite honestly, I feel like both wines feel lighter than 14.5. All three of our wines are exactly the same ABV. So again, it was kind of convenient from a storytelling standpoint that I just got to pick because there wasn't like an obvious, this guy's so much fuller bodied than the other ones. Marc has since left Bernabeleva, but his stamp is very deeply imprinted there. So he is no longer the head winemaker there, but the house style, kind of like what they're known for, is not going away anytime soon, as evidenced by newer vintages. Yeah. Any questions before we leave Bernabeleva? One last look at me on the bear. International travel. Doesn't that sound good? Sigh, I know, right? Oh, you can go visit Bernabeleva. So if you find yourselves in Spain ever, it's just an hour outside of Madrid. I really recommend it. It's not a fancy, I don't know. I keep thinking showroom. It's not the word I'm looking for. Tasting room is the word I'm looking for. It's not like, super fancy or anything like that, but I believe that they are open to the public. They're lovely. Their wines are super accessible. we always carry the Camino de Navarreros, which is the entry level of this. So this is from different parcels of land from older vines, whereas the Camino is from younger vines throughout all of their holdings. And then we also, as long as it's available, have a white from them as well. So if you're into Bruna wines, we are also, and I tend to carry a lot of them. Okay, we're going to go ever so slightly further west, just outside of the Vinos de Madrid area, to the Sierra de Gredos. So this winery, Pegaso. Telmo was like literally hiking through these mountains with his dad, like on some, I mean, he didn't tell me this story personally. I just read about it, but like, I can only imagine some sort of like soul searching deep philosophy, like go out into the woods and get to know the land kind of mission. So they were traveling through the Sierra de Gredos, camping out, kind of trying to find like land that they loved. Their intention was to originally write a book about the area. These are the mountains just outside of Madrid. Not where the family's from, but I believe that they live in Madrid, at least part of the time. I'm trying to remember if that's correct or not. I think so. Although now I'm second guessing myself and thinking it's Barcelona. Anyway, doesn't matter. He and his father are kind of traveling through this area, kind of like getting to know it, getting to love it. And they fell in love with some land and they eventually bought some vineyards there. It was Telmo's intention to be the winemaker, and he did start out as the winemaker. But as I mentioned at the beginning, Telmo has a lot of wine projects. This is kind of his thing now. So he's got like Remieri, like home base. And then he like goes out into Spain and finds like little bits of land, little vineyards that kind of for one reason or another speak to him. And he starts a wine label or a winery around them. And like, that's kind of his purpose right now. So he was like, yeah, we need a winemaker that we can trust with the Pegaso vines. Who's that going to be? And I was like, hey, Marc's just down the road making, kind of arguably maybe some of the world's best Grenache, or at least, really interesting Garnacha. So Marc came on as the head winemaker in 2016. And so he is now the winemaker there at Pegaso. So it's the lovely confluence of these two masterful people. So this is also 100% Garnacha. They use organic farming here. I do know that the wine is not vegan. So they don't technically fall into natural winemaking because they might be using some sort of animal casein kind of thing for fining. So our natural winemaking isn't here in this one, but that's okay. Again, I have some food suggestions there, but this wine is really lovely with things that have an earthy or almost more mineral quality to them. So while I listed trout, you could go even more like mineral driven and with a shellfish or something like that. But then also this kind of like earthy, like so lentils, maybe even mushrooms, something along those lines. That's kind of how I like to think about this wine, sea or earth. So this is the Pegaso vineyard. As you can see, it's decently similar to Bruna. This is the only picture, I think I said this along the way, but this is the only picture that I did not personally take. So I did not get to go to Pegaso. I just got to hang out with these guys at their other places. So the really interesting thing about the Pegaso project, it started with a wine called Granito, which they still make. And Granito is from vines that are grown in completely granitic soil, so 100% granite. The Zeta wines, which is what we have, those vineyards have the granite, and then there's this layer of brown slate running through the middle of the soil. So again, I don't mean to turn this into soil class. That's in a few weeks if you want to come to that. It's in person and it'll be fabulous. But I do think that it's worth noting that you're going to taste two Garnachas. from almost the same area, but one is sandy soil. And now here we've got granite and slate. And you can kind of really see the difference. I think you can smell the difference. Please don't tell me you don't notice the tannins. If you do, we're gonna have to have a one-on-one intervention. Yeah, right. There's Marc's style. There it is. Like that, unmistakably Marc. Which I just think is so wild because, like, if you have Grenache from the Rhone, it never tastes like this, right? Let alone, California or warmer parts of Spain. It's all like candied fruit and stuff. And Marc's wines just are not that. And because Telmo, and this is a Telmo project, this wine is aged some in stainless steel, some in Foudre, which are these kind of like oval shaped barrels, and then some in 500-liter used barrels, which are bigger. So Telmo's love of oak in a beautiful, subtle way comes up here as well. Yeah, the fruit is for sure here. It's just not as dominant, right? It's not as, I think that this wine is much more about the earth. I think it kind of smells like you're walking through sort of dusty soils. Here, let me bring that back up again. Like, I think if you kind of close your eyes, you can kind of picture yourself like kicking up some of that dirt, right? What do others think? I don't mean to just be waxing forth. Okay. I guess I can wax forth. If you're not watching live, I'm just like waiting for the chat to have things. But I guess people are just drinking, and that is okay. Just drink away, y'all. Have fun. Yeah. So I think that that's kind of this one's still got the high tannin, agree with a nice earthiness, slightly darker ripe fruits and riper. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I feel like the Rioja was all black fruit and the Bernabelleva was all red fruit. And then this guy's like somewhere in the middle of those two, right? I feel like you're getting kind of like a little bit of both things. Tegan thinks that it has a savory note that you can't identify. There's definitely a savory stuff going on for sure. I can't say for sure what it is that you're picking up on, but there's a mushroominess, I think. But then some lovely tart. The geographic difference between the two Grenaches are so clear in the profile, right? Like, it's so fascinating because these places are so close to each other. Like, they're really not far. I mean, it's, I'm trying to remember what I read. I mean, it's 20 miles, 30 miles, something like not far. But there's mountains, right? And like suddenly it's a whole different wine, right? So you can have the same grape in the same person's hand and like, there you go. Everyone is just enjoying the fantastic wines tonight. Thank you, Kristen, for reassuring me as to why you're all quiet. No, it's great. Like, it's seriously, I was worried because I was like, there isn't so much to like teach, right? There's just so like more to share. But we ended up talking about soil. We ended up talking about geography. I got to tell you, the stories behind the people who make these wines. And like, that's super valuable too, right? It's not learning. It's just a different kind of learning, I guess. And I'm just glad that you want to drink all of these wines. I recorded an episode of the podcast earlier today and have 2 bottles of Chenin Blanc open that are like ridiculous. They're so good. And now I have these 3 wines open. And then Connor and I had a bottle of wine open, like that we hadn't finished. So we currently have 6 bottles of wine open in the house. And I'm like, but I don't know which ones to drink. Like, I'm super excited about all of these wines. Like, these are all like really fabulous things. So I hope that you guys enjoyed them. I did want to mention, while I have your attention here for another hot second, and I know some of you have already said that you'd be on board. If you are around next Saturday, that is March 12th, from starting at like 2:00, I think it'll probably be an hour or 2. If you are interested in being recorded for the podcast, we are looking to have we're just going to kind of hang out and drink some natural wine at the shop next Saturday. And kind of record everybody, kind of record what you think of the wine. It doesn't have to be anything profound. It can literally just be like, I like this. I don't like this. I've never had anything like it. We're looking to get a group of about 10 to 12 people. So you guys feel like the, kind of the core people that I want to reach out to. So if you are available and around and interested, you can either, drop it in the chat here or email me or DM me or whatever. But it'd be really great to have some of you there. I'm going to open wine. Andy and I are going to be there. We're just going to pour you tasty things and let the conversation kind of flow. We might do pull off one-on-one interviews, but it would just be a couple of questions, nothing major. And I would love to have you guys, all of you, be there. Or some of you, some combination of it. So hit me up. If there are any questions, drop them in the chat. I think that's the end of the road. There are spots left in soil class. So if the difference between sandy soil and granite and slate got you giddy excited, come hang out with us. And it's in person, but we all have to be vaccinated. And we did our first in-person class a couple weeks ago, and it was not nearly as terrifying as I thought it was going to be. So join us for soil class. There are about half the spots are still open. So there's definitely room in that class. Oh, good. Yay. Please do hit me up for the podcast episode. It's going to be really fun. It's just going to be us hanging out and drinking, which if today's podcast recording is any indication, Andy and I talked for an hour and a half. we just talked about all sorts of things. It'll make editing very hard. So otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed Telmo and Marc. I hope that you kind of see what it means to kind of follow a winemaker and get to know their style. Yay, Drew. Cacho, you will be missed. You can start to really know the people that you like. And some winemakers, are always at the same winery and they don't have a lot of different projects. And then some people are like Telmo, and you can kind of just follow him all around Spain and learn all about Spain, kind of knowing that you're in good hands. Or you can get to say hey, I like the way that Marc makes Grenache, right? I mean, it's like liking an author, right? Okay, I know that I like their books. I'm going to check them out. Even if it's a different genre, right? It's just kind of yeah, I think I like what he's doing. So I hope that you enjoy these wines. I hope you all have lovely evenings. I think that's all she wrote, guys. Oh, yay. Good. Yes. And please enjoy these wines this weekend. Have it with really kind of anything you want. Really, honestly, all 3 of these have such good acidity. They're going to pair beautifully with almost anything that you're having or not having if you're not eating. Yay. I loved all these wines. I like the novel class idea. Oh, good. I'm so glad, guys. Okay. I will see you all again. Hit me up if you want to drink with us next weekend. We would love to have you. And thank you so much. I'll see you soon.